Hello everyone, in this video I am going to be talking about Homer's Iliad. Now this version was done by Robert Fagles, I guess let's go with Fagles, who is a professor of English and comparative literature at Princeton University. And he did the Iliad, he did a couple other ones. I think he did the Odyssey and the Aeneid. He did translations on all three of those. And I hope one day to read the Odyssey and the Aeneid, but considering how it took me 14 years to read the Iliad, that's going to be interesting. But yeah, hopefully I can do those other two eventually. But yeah, the Iliad, I think I started this back in early or mid 2004, so I just got done with it a couple of days ago. So it's pretty crazy, but I really like it. It's a great story. It's maybe the best war story ever, even though there's no way of knowing how much of it's real and how much of it isn't. But it's absolutely just a great story, great characters. You could kind of say, I guess, Achilles is the main character in this, which is yeah, I think that's pretty accurate to say. I mean, there's a lot of parts with Odysseus, Ajax, Agamemnon, Menelaus, Paris, Hector, all that kind of stuff. But I think the story really revolves around Achilles, and therefore you could say the war really revolves around him. So it's a really good story, and I absolutely enjoyed it. I think this translation of it came out in 1990, so this was a while ago. But this is kind of the considered to be the I guess the really good version. I mean, who knows what's the really good version? But I like this. It's took me forever to read, but it's awesome, and I really enjoyed it. It's got the reason why it took me so long was because there's a lot of kind of exposition parts, like just guys talking about what's going on and stuff, and it's very kind of poetic, flowery kind of language and stuff, which kind of just drones on and on and on. But the action in the story is pretty brutal. I mean, the violence is very rough. I mean, there's parts where guys are getting spears through their heads, coming out them, the spear points coming out of their mouths or going through their teeth. I mean, just crazy shit. I remember there was this one guy who like stuck a spear through a guy's basically his hip, and it's describing the spear going through the tendons and stuff, connecting the leg bone to the hip and stuff. It's like I mean, just like yeah, kind of very brutal. Guys getting hit in the heads by rocks, their brains, falling out, their skulls. I mean, very violent. But hey, it's like I always say, brutality is reality, or reality is brutality. Doesn't really matter which way you say it. I guess kind of like one for all for one, or all for one and one for all. But yeah, basically, I just like saying that because usually the more brutal something is, the more realistic it is, or if you want to flip it, the more realistic something is, the odds are the more brutal it is. So, you gotta remember what these guys were using as far as weaponry was concerned, bronze swords. I mean, maybe a couple of guys had a couple of iron blades, but I mean, bronze spear points and rocks and knives and shields. I mean, just, some guys were even using wrestling and boxing. In fact, there's a part where it was actually, I guess, during the funeral games of Patroclus after he died. And I was reading about the Iliad and stuff, and this is like maybe the earliest known record of Greek athletics in existence. Because Homer supposedly wrote this in the 800s BC, so then he was writing about the boxing, the spear throwing, chariot racing, wrestling. I mean, you gotta think that's pretty damn early on. I mean, this is preceding the Olympics by a couple of centuries. So yeah, this is pretty shed some pretty good light on that. So it's pretty interesting. I mean, that's just one part of how influential and important the Iliad is. I mean, this is maybe arguably the most important story in Western civilization and Western culture, just because, I mean, everybody read this. Every, you know, the Romans read it, the Carthaginians probably read it. In the Renaissance it got big again, but even in the Dark Ages, monks were writing it down in Latin, in their tomes and books and stuff. So I mean, this for it to survive 3,000 years is really special. So if you get a chance to read this in your life, you absolutely should. Like I said, it's probably the greatest war story of all time. So definitely check it out.